You're listening to Bold Calling, a podcast presented by Orum, where every episode we're bringing on the biggest and brightest minds in the tech and sales industries for a discussion about their biggest challenges and the unique ways that they're working to solve them. I'm your host, Adam Sockel, and today I am very excited to be joined by Leslie Venetz, founder of the sales-led GTM agency. Leslie, thank you so much for taking time to join me today.
I'm so excited. If our pre-call is any indication of how much fun we're going to have now that we're live, this is going to be a good one, folks.
Just a peek behind the curtain. We are going to talk all about sales development and all sorts of really fun stuff that Leslie is absolutely an expert in. But I had so many notes from our initial call that when I sent Leslie questions the day before we recorded this, she's like, those are not the ones I think we want to talk about. And I was like, oh, I just had notes on this too. So it was very wide ranging.
We covered it all.
Yeah, we'll keep focus on this. And so for context for people listening in, when this comes out, it will be right around the same time as Orum is releasing our second annual State of Sales Development report. And what we did for that report is we did a third-party, double-blind survey of 1,000 sales organizations, and we got a whole bunch of incredible data on go-to-market strategies, customer acquisition costs, sales cycles, all the buzzwords and acronyms you could possibly imagine. And I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about some of these topics then with Leslie. So we're going to dive right in because Leslie has been talking all day and she's been very, very gracious to join me. So we're going to be talking about how to capitalize all of the things that you're doing so that you can set yourself up for success in 2025, because we're always forward looking. So, first things first, I want to ask you, how do you think about making outbound effective as customer acquisition costs are on the rise, tech stacks are reducing as opposed to growing? How do you think about making outbound effective in this current moment in time?
Oh, I think about it in a lot of ways. A couple that pop to the top of my head. One is ensuring that you are always taking a multi-channel approach. I go with a minimum of 3 channels. But at this point, Adam, I'm thinking about like a multi-touch, multi-channel, multimedia approach, meaning you aren't even just like you're cold calling, but if somebody doesn't answer, maybe you are sending a voice note, maybe you are sending a text, you're using LinkedIn, but you're also sending LinkedIn voice notes, maybe you're sending videos. Like, how can you create even more diversity in the channels you're using with different mediums so that we are optimizing the chance of reaching a person where they want to be communicated with a really good message? I think the really good message piece is another element, because when I think about CAC, one thing I don't want to see my team doing unless they are running like an ABM or key accounts campaign is spending 30, 60 minutes researching every single contact before they even pick up the phone. We're still seeing that prescribed as like a activity that should be done for quote unquote good sellers by gurus on LinkedIn. And I think it's BS. I think it's nonsense. Sellers tend to be very black and white thinkers, especially sales leaders. And there's this false dichotomy that has to be like quality or quantity. And I disagree. I don't think that we have to choose. And I think to be the most effective as you can be with outbound and to keep an eye on reducing that CAC, which is the cost of customer acquisition for folks that maybe aren't familiar with the term, you need to personalize for things that are relevant based on trend lines in the industry, with the customers they're selling to, with the general persona, versus spending 30, 60 minutes before you even start your outreach. Those are 2 that pop to the top of my mind, but we could talk about that forever. That could be the whole podcast.
I was just going to say, Leslie, I need everyone to know, I sent Leslie like 8 to 10, like pretty thought out questions. And then everything you just said right there, I was like, I could talk for 45 minutes about everything she just said. So before I move on, I do want to drill down a little bit, because we do have, there is some data points in this report where we're talking about channels. And you're right. People think, if they're listening to this Orum podcast, or they see this Orum content out there that they're always producing, people assume we're going to be like, pick up the phone exclusively, only pick up the phone. And like, we couldn't preach that, like a more opposite version of that. We say exactly what you do. Like, you need omnichannel because you need to create awareness in your brand and what you do. So when someone actually sees you calling and they're like, okay, what does Adam want? And what we've seen is, the biggest three are still phone, email, and then it's like social is this catch-all. But then right behind that is video is the fourth one, which is interesting. That's changed a lot even just in the last 12 months. And I'm not going to ask you for like, what's your best sequence? What's your best playbook? Because there's no singular best way of doing that. But I have heard lots of people have different strategies about like, oh, I send an email first and then I call, or I connect with someone on LinkedIn and I send them a video message and then I call. Like if you were working with an outbound team and you were saying, okay, we do want to optimize. I don't want you to spend 90 minutes researching insert company here. Is there like a process you would do for the different channels that tends to work more often for you than not?
It really depends on who the ICP is, I think, and if they live on LinkedIn or not. Because if they live on LinkedIn, I'm going to run a social heavy play. If they don't, I'm going to run like an email phone heavy play. A lot of my clients sell to the IT persona. They don't live on LinkedIn. So we like smash the phones on a lot of my sequences. But like, here's two thoughts that I'll leave the listeners with. One is that even if you don't have high connect rates on phone calls, voicemail is still an outbound strategy that increases the effectiveness of the rest of your touch points. So when we think about sequences, there is no best sequence, but something I always do is double or triple tap in my very first day one. And so what that might look if a call was involved was call, they don't answer, I leave a voicemail. The voicemail will then push to an email. And so maybe I'll say like subject line is X, or the email comes from, Leslie at sales.gtm, right? Like I'm gonna push them to the email. The data is undeniable that increases the email open rates. Or if it's a social heavy touch, what I'll usually do is connect message. And then sometimes I'll send an in-mail, depends, like I'll do that double tap where the connect message points to the in-mail points to the connect message. And then I'll use almost the exact same copy for my email number one, which I would also send on day one. So always a double, triple tap on day one.
I love that. First off, I am so glad you mentioned voicemail. Orum has a voicemail sequencer, which is great. You can leave them at scale with a little bit of personalization, but more importantly, like, so does like a lot of other phone tools. So if you are using a phone tool, whether it's Orum or not, leave voicemails, because especially like the thing I love most about them, and I talk about this several times now, so I apologize to listeners, is the voice like to text that it creates. So everyone thought that was going to be the death of voicemail. In reality, it just literally is another perfect brand touch point where it's like, oh, okay, Leslie's calling me. This is what it's about. Okay. And then when you call me back, there is some brand recognition. And then you said double tap. Like my brother is a CRO and his favorite thing is like, it's actually double tap, like phone double tap. He'll call once. If you don't answer, he'll call a second time. Then he'll leave a voicemail on that second one. Because if you answer on the second one, he has the like, oh, hey, it only rang like 2 times. So I thought maybe it just got disconnected. So I want to try you again. And if you don't pick up that second time, then he'll leave the voicemail. But like the amount of times he will get someone to answer that second time is astounding. It's such a like little, I don't want to say like hack, but it's such a great thing that he does it.
That's like the only double tap I don't do any longer. I used to do it, and let's be very clear, it works. So it's not that I don't do it because it doesn't work. Like it definitely works, folks. But I am already like a ball of anxiety, Adam. And
you have to be ready. They're going to be mad at you.
Like my darling husband, like if he's like 10 minutes late from like riding his bike back from pickleball, I'm like, oh, he's dead. He's dead. It's over. And I just don't need to invite that kind of anxiety like into my prospects' lives and into the universe. So I don't do it not because it doesn't work, but just like my personal take on it.
Oh yeah, you've got to be seasoned and comfortable with knowing that you're going to probably have someone picking up aggressively. But yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. I will say that for sure. I want to ask you to keep the conversation going. I want to ask you, what should outbound look like, especially like moving forward and planning for 2025, when right now so much focus is on reducing churn and mitigating loss as opposed to focusing as like trying to grow your book of business? Like what should outbound look like in this moment where I feel like many organizations are thinking about reduce churn as opposed to grow?
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of our listeners are probably individual contributors versus like the CRO persona who actually can change comp structures. But maybe an unpopular opinion is that a lot of people should have their comp reduced, because if the focus really is on creating, that recurring revenue stream or creating land and expand opportunities, whatever it is, right? Like the majority of the revenue is going to be coming from existing customers versus net new. Then why are we putting so much pressure to chase customers into the funnel and ultimately into our customer base who we know are going to churn after year one? But sellers don't have a choice because they have these quotas that very few of them are hitting anyway, and they're going to, hustle as hard as they need to be able to like get their bag. So I think like the comp piece is one issue, but knowing that a lot of the listeners aren't going to be able to like go and affect fundamental change on their comp. I would say one thing that you can push with your manager and like within your organization is crystal clarity on qualifying. And I don't mean just qualifying like, oh, we use Medic or we use BANT, but like really digging into what makes a customer renew, what a great customer that's been with the organization for 3 years looks like, why a customer, like what a customer profile looks like if they're the ones giving referrals, doing case studies, doing testimonials. Because my experience with sellers is that like, sure, we are motivated by money, but we're also motivated by like being team players and by appreciation and recognition and like doing right by our customers. So if we have the visibility into who is going to get the most benefit from our product or service, I'm confident that we will lead with that in our outbounding.
That's so interesting. And I will say like one of the data points we saw as well was we looked at basically who is responsible for driving pipeline in over the past 12 months. So like basically the majority of 2024, and the number one, almost 50%, they said like customer success or account management. Like that was where almost 50%. So it was really that like land and expand, which is why, ABM it's so big right now, and why like we always talk about human-centric selling, like relationship selling and network-based selling, all these things where it's like you're building trust is so important. And are there factors that the outbound sellers should be considering? Like you mentioned kind of at like a high level, but like, are there specific types of like clarifying questions or things that the kind of frontline people should be asking when thinking about, okay, we're bringing in these book of business in the hope, and with the hope that they will become a multi-year customer? Or should that really not be their responsibility in the first place, especially with having quota and all these different things?
I know. It depends like who is answering this. Is like Leslie the champion of the salesperson answering this, or is it like Leslie the advisor to the founder that's answering this? I think salespeople, the most important thing that you need to do is you. So like hit your like, don't lie, don't cheat, don't manipulate, like don't do anything that compromises your integrity. But otherwise, like you can only do your best with the tools that you are given, and your job is to hit quota. That is your number one KPI. So if there are opportunities to, like I mentioned, get clarity on what a great customer looks like and incorporate more of that, I think that will equal long-term success, like greater long-term success. But like, you just got to do what you can to drive your own quota. I don't know. I feel like that answer might get me in trouble.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll get you in trouble, because I understand where you're coming from. And like there are one of the questions that was sent off to the boneyard that we're not going to use, I was curious about like the AE to CS handoff. And the reason I ask is like we have some pretty substantial accounts that work with us here at Orum, some pretty big enterprise accounts that the AE who sold the deal is still very much a part of like the CS team that works with them. And I do think that has been part of the reason that these people, like we've had a couple of accounts that actually just signed like 2 and 3 year extensions of their deals. And I want to give the account executives credit for being within that part. But at the same time, like to your point, them helping to expand an existing account isn't helping them hit quota.
Okay, but it is when you think about the fact that CS is, in my opinion, the single best source of information about why people buy and why they renew. So it is going to help them hit quota, and that it's going to help them sell better, ask better questions, focus on the right benefits. And CS is also the single greatest source of referrals. Like, you want to collaborate with your CS team, and when it's something specific like a handover, where it's not like about the greater good of the organization. It's like, I'm doing you, Adam, a solid because you are my cross-functional business partner. I want to see you succeed because when you succeed, I succeed. Then yes, that is going to help you achieve your quota.
That's a good point. That's fair. So, okay, we're going to steer away from customer success because I can feel myself getting into the weeds, and I want to, there's a lot of things I want to ask you while I've got you here. Okay. So to get back to the outbound and like reducing CAC and also like reducing sales cycles, one of the things I want to ask you about is like, this is the noisiest time really ever. It feels like in SaaS, like there's inboxes are completely cluttered. If you post even anything at all on LinkedIn and you have even a remotely small following, your inbox is just 95 people pitching you, whatever it is. What are some things, we talked about the different channels, like what are some ways, whether it's messaging or just approaches that people can use? And like, what do you teach so that we can cut through all that noise and actually move things along a lot faster than maybe is the norm?
Yeah. Oof. So here's maybe something that's going to be hard for a lot of people to hear who think that they are nailing it. I get a tremendous amount of inbound. I also see hundreds, probably thousands of emails a year that are being like sent or received by the companies I work for. Most of your messaging sucks. So it's like people are always looking for these next level strategies and how do I break through the noise? And it's like, what you're doing is not, like, you're not even getting the basics right. So here's where I would invite people to start before they try to diversify into some of those like next level pattern interrupt strategies, is to go back and audit your messaging, like whether it's a call script, email, voicemail script, video script, whatever. Audit it to make sure that it is not like writer centric, that it is reader centric. So that's as simple as removing like all of the I, we, our language, replacing it with you, they, them language, replacing it with voice of customer language. Because most of the emails, and I promise if you like ask your CRO founder, et cetera, to audit their like spam box, all of the emails are like, I saw your, I see that, our company does, right? It's all that very like I, we, our language. And you have simply not earned the right for your prospect to give a heck about you and your company features yet. So audit for the reader versus writer centric language, and then go back one more time and do another audit to make sure you're benefit focused. And this is something I work with when I'm like helping clients work on copy, is that I would say about 40% of the emails that are written are very feature focused. And we've all seen those, right? Like, here are the 3 features that we offer. And it's like, fine, so do a lot of people, don't really care. Why does it matter to me? Maybe another 40% go to the advantage of those features. Like, it's one click. One click means it's faster and easier to use. And you're like, cool, but everybody says that they're going to save me time and save me money and reduce risk, et cetera. Like, why does it matter to me? I would say only like 10 to 20% of sales messaging goes all the way to the benefit and explicitly tells the prospect why it is relevant to them. So the first thing that I would invite folks to do is just really master the skill of making it matter to them. And then if you want to do some next level stuff, that's where I really encourage you to explore things like voice notes and video and text. And one of my favorite things to do is blur the lines between demand gen and lead gen. So maybe incorporating like an outbound led event play, or like finding really creative ways to collab with marketing or product. But first, just really make sure that you are getting the reader v writer centric and the benefit, like relevant benefit focused scripting down so that your prospects actually give a heck.
Yeah. It's the SaaS version of like, people always say, like, so often it's like, I'm just waiting for my turn to talk. Like, I feel like, so, anytime you have a conversation with like a selfish person, you can see they're just like waiting for their turn to talk. It's like, I feel like the SaaS version of that is like, I just want you to hear how special our AI features are. It's like, no one cares. Everyone has those. What does it actually do for you? I love that. That's such a wonderful tip that you're right. Not enough people do. I will say, like, I'm in marketing, so grain of salt for all the salespeople listening. I always say, if I can create a message or whatever that holds your attention for a second, that I am awarded the next second after that. Like, all I care about is holding your attention. And sometimes that means being weird. If people have followed Orum on LinkedIn over the past 6 months, you will notice that we have been really weird sometimes with like strange videos and just like vibes, as our demand gen director says. But like, if I can hold your attention for a minute, if I can like hold your attention, I can keep I have a chance to keep your attention. And I was like, I've earned the next second. So those are like, but I love what you're talking about, like decentering and putting them first. And I feel very schizophrenic because I'm bouncing all around, but so many things I want to ask you.
I have one more thing, because I think that what you said is actually, like, the analogy you used is so freaking brilliant, because people can feel it. Like, people know what it feels like to sit across the table talking to somebody who actually is only there to hear themselves talk. And then that's what we're so often asking our prospects to do, is just like show up and listen to us talk at them. So I think that was just that. I felt that. I felt that in my chest. And I also love what you said about like earning with 1 second, you earn the next second, because isn't that exactly how we teach people to build their cold calls? Your call opener earns you like the next 20 to 30 seconds where you get in your impact statement. And then that earns you the opportunity to start a dialogue. And then that earns you the opportunity to dig deeper. So that whole process is, you use that first, 8 to 10 seconds of the call opener to earn the right to do the next thing, to the next thing. Both A+ analogies there, Adam.
Thank you. I said something in a previous episode where we said trust is iterative, where it's that exact same thing. It's like, the person I was speaking with was, he worked with founders, like sales, basically founders who were doing founder-led sales. And basically he was talking about, he's like, they're great at so many things, but they're not great at the thing that they need to be great at next. And so you have to like slowly show them, like peel back the onion. And so, yeah, that is how I always talk about, like, earn the next second for sure. So that, I appreciate you liking that. And please, you can steal it. I'm okay with that.
It might be a LinkedIn post next week.
I'm okay with that. Please do it. Okay, so I want to ask you about how you would align a revenue organization moving forward. This is a big question, because the data we have, like I said, it showed that the accountability connected to who's building pipeline over 2024 has been, account management had the largest number, but then there was also AEs, SDRs, and marketing were kind of like right behind that, sort of like neck and neck. So it's really these 4 different aspects of, very different aspects of a revenue team. But at the same time, we also saw the overwhelming majority of people who responded to this survey said they expect to hire more sales development representatives in the next 12 months. So they still feel strongly about sales development, which is great. Love that. So I want to ask you, I want to ask you, how would you, and this, you can answer this however you want, because align is a very big word, but how would you align a revenue organization to balance like this current and future reality of all of these different aspects of revenue are responsible for building revenue? You've got, like I said, CS, marketing, SDRs, AEs. At the same time, people are hiring more SDRs. Like, how would you align an organization from a revenue standpoint to drive success moving forward?
Oh gosh, so many things just popped into my head. I mean, the first thing that popped in my head, and you'll appreciate this as a marketer, is that one of my favorite trends is that folks are replacing drop-down attribution on their websites with fill-in-the-blank attribution. I love that trend. From my own business, because I'm a solopreneur, so I can really be like, no, but really, where did you hear about me? Most of my lead flow right now is from LinkedIn. And so if I took it at face value, I'd be like, oh, LinkedIn. It is people that watched me on a podcast or webinar last year that followed me to LinkedIn and have been then following me there, and then saw like a catalyst post that was their moment to reach out. But like the attribution is the podcast or webinar. But if I wasn't asking those questions, I'd be like, oh, I guess I should just keep social selling when it's not the social selling, it's the podcast and webinars. So I think that we're seeing a lot of that in business as well. And I think more than at any time historically, there is comfort in sharing credit. Where, we've always talked about the flywheel, and it sounds like this like really sexy, great phrase, but at the end of the day, sales is like, I know that marketing, has 60 points on their MQL score for this, but they didn't do anything. And, right? It's the drama. But I think now more than ever, folks are getting to the point where they're like, there is no single attribution for everything. Everything is some sort of blended attribution. We're all on the same team. For heck's sake, like, let's act like it. So that is one thing that popped in my head. The other thing that popped in my head is one of the things I am seeing organizations get wrong is hiring AEs that were not full cycle AEs. And now suddenly they are expecting these AEs to book their own meetings. And because they have the AE skill set, there's an assumption that they have the SDR skill set. And I think that they are complementary, but different skill sets. And so I would beg of organizations who are going to ask their AEs to self-source, train them. Train them on, give them that refresher on cold calling and on prospecting and on territory management from that different lens, because so often we're putting this extra ask on our team, but then we're not giving, we're just expecting them to suddenly be comfortable cold calling when maybe they haven't cold called in a decade. So I would just encourage leaders to acknowledge that it honestly might be a little bit scary for an AE who's suddenly being asked to self-source, and to give them extra resources and extra training to enable that.
I would add something in having these conversations for this podcast and customer stories and all those different things. Something that keeps coming up is time blocking. And so I would say as you're bringing on AEs, especially those who are going to be self-sourcing, I feel like there needs to be more training on calendar blocking and being protective of your calendar. I have heard so many extremely seasoned AEs be like, yeah, if you look at my calendar, good luck scheduling a meeting with me because I have these blocks. And while it can be frustrating as the person trying to schedule that meeting, it's so important. If you're an account executive, like you said, and if you have to schedule your own meetings, you have to schedule demos, but you have so many other things you're doing, you don't have that 8 hours to prospect anymore. You might have 90 minutes a day. Maybe, exactly. So, and I think that's something where I don't think there's enough training of understanding okay, here's what calendar blocking actually means. Here's how to do it effectively. Is that something that you talk to your teams about?
Okay, we didn't even talk about this on the pre-call, but this is one of my favorite topics of all time. If anybody has ever sent me an email or a LinkedIn message, then you know that my away message, my out of office reply is aggressive.
It's so good. I love it so much.
It's so aggressive, but that is part of the bigger equation of how I own my time. And a lot of it is boundaries. So 2 thoughts on time blocking. One is The biggest piece of resistance I hear from sales reps about time blocking is that they have like an overinflated sense of importance. And like I'm holding your hands while I say that you are important and I love you and the work you do is valuable, but nobody's going to miss you if you're gone for an hour or two. But what happens is that they'll start time blocking and they won't communicate that to anybody. And so there's somebody that for a year of working together always responded to emails in 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden they're just gone for 2 hours and they're like, Slack is on, their Slack is off. And they're like, where the heck did Adam go? So I highly, highly recommend that you communicate that new style of working to the people around you. And I will, even if I'm just going to be doing like, let's say a 2-hour cold call block, I will still set that as my message in my Slack and on my email to internal contacts so that people know when to expect to get a response from me. So that is one thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that I'm a massive, massive fan of Stephen Covey's urgent versus important framework, which other folks might recognize as being called the Eisenhower matrix. So when I run this workshop, I'll like put up all 4 of the blocks, which are like urgent versus important, important versus urgent, etc. And I'll ask people to open their calendars and tell me what block they think everything should go in. And without fail, every single time, 80% of the tasks that are people's calendars, they think go in the important and urgent box. And it's like 5%. And so what I would really challenge people to do is question their own sense of false urgency. And you might be listening to this right now and being like, but it is urgent, Leslie. I have to make calls. I have to send emails. I agree that it is time sensitive. It is not urgent. All of those activities are things that you know are coming. On like a daily or weekly basis, they're things that you have to do, which means that you should be planning for them, which insert Adam's point means they should be time blocked because they are anticipated activities. They shouldn't be these like urgent distractions. But I think honestly, if people can just embrace like those 2 small things, like communicating boundaries and more actively setting them, and then pairing that with a better understanding of what is truly urgent versus what should be planned for and calendar blocked, it would make all of corporate America so much better.
Yeah, I was very fortunate at a previous job. I worked very closely with the CEO of this global company. I managed our brand and he liked being a part of our brand. And so I would communicate with him all the time. And he had a PR background. So he taught me very early in my career, he was like, triage, tell me the most important thing, the next most important thing. You need to know what they are because I don't care about the rest. So I totally agree with you there. Okay, I have 2. I'm being respectful of time. I have 2 more topics I want to try and touch on and want to try and hit. One is something that people can't stop talking about. So I want to get your opinions on this. So how are you viewing outbound going into 2025, where the reality of AI seems to be less about like, it's going to get rid of everyone's job, and it's more about shifting what sales development representatives actually do? Like, how are you thinking about outbound and AI on a very high level without talking for 90 minutes, which I know we could? Like, what are your thoughts on it, and how do you think it's going to affect sales development in the coming year?
Okay, I think the overall effect is going to be positive. I think that we are doing ourselves a disservice if we look at AI as being replacive. Instead, I would invite us to look at AI as being assistive. Big misses that I am seeing with AI are folks not using it to do stuff like automating all of your like CRM input, or like there's still folks out there that aren't inviting like a bot to their calls. And I'm like, oh my God, are you just remembering that? Like, what?
How dare you?
So I think that there are these like incredible opportunities for being assistive and automating those like low risk, low value tasks. What I'm seeing is that a lot of the way automation is being used that makes me like want to throw up in my mouth is that people are scaling things that already weren't working. And I see this a lot, like especially I'll see it on Instagram, is that some sales expert will be like, I have the path to revenue for you. You just need to send out 3,000 emails a day and you'll get 5 meetings a week. I'm like, sir, I'm sorry. Is the ratio that you just prescribed 15,000 emails to like 5 people buying your $50 course? Because that's spam. That's spam. And so we're seeing this, like, because it is so easy to automate, we are seeing a rise in spam, but people are using like sexy words to describe it. So like, don't fall for that. That's garbage. That's spam. One last thought is that I know we sometimes get caught up in our like tech sales bubble, SaaS bubble. Most people are not using AI, is my experience. Or they're using AI, but like not really. Like they're using like a calendar automation, but they're not really using AI. So I think that we overestimate how many sales development organizations or how many like revenue organizations in general have AI like intimately built into the day-to-day processes that support their growth.
I think we all get a little bit of brain rot of being tragically online and seeing everyone talk about AI on LinkedIn, and it's like, oh my God, everyone is doing how much AI, and then in reality, they're like you said, they're going to ChatGPT and being like, tell X persona that we can solve X problem, and it's like that's
like, which is cool. Like, do that. Right. Keep experimenting, keep playing. But I think that there is going to be so much. Like, I will say my thing I'm most excited about is when the bots get good enough to do really good role plays with reps. That's going to be incredible. Like being able to like onboard or test a new product or test a new persona and do an AI role play. I'm a big fan of that.
As long as you can also get feedback from a real person manager, there's a lot of nuance to that.
I mean, it's like the trap of like the conversational intelligence bots, right? Like people were just getting a bunch of like data points, and it's like, but okay, but what do I do with that? So if it's not, I mean, that's like a whole nother conversation, but like if AI just gives you a list of stuff that isn't like if you're like, here are 12 data points, very few reps that I know have the time or energy or maybe even ability to translate those data points into action. So the best AI I'm seeing right now is highly prescriptive and very focused.
Yeah. Okay, last question. This one is a little bit therapeutic for me because I have a boss who is desperately trying to get me to do less, and I keep expanding. She literally today said, the scope of projects you are managing at this point, Adam, is frankly unsustainable. Let's try to reduce. Like, that was her exact sentence. I adore her. Everyone should get a boss who says do less. Anyway, if you only had budget for 3 outbound channels, we are saying hard stop at 3. I'm not going to let you say like, well, video, but we're going to use it through 3 channels. What would you choose and why?
Phone.
Great.
Phone is
a great answer.
Yeah. He did not pay me for this. No, like phone. I have been selling for 20 years, and folks, like I genuinely have sold to HR, to IT, to finance, to procurement, to say like I've sold to every persona. I have sold like 4-figure to 6-figure plus deals, like product, services. Like I have sold it all. And the phone is and always will be my go-to channel. And I mean, like always, like I don't even see that change in the next like 5 to 10 years. But to your point at the top of the pod, like nobody's saying only use the phone. I don't know any sales expert that's actually an expert that's like, choose one channel, good luck. So I would do email, and I would do LinkedIn.
I think that's the right triumvirate.
For now, I don't know, but like so many questions because a lot of people, like one of my favorite plays I'm running right now is like an event-led outbound play. So like, is in-person networking a sales channel?
I love how you're trying to work around this extremely hypothetical question. Everything else I've asked you that involved like a lot of thorough thinking, you just off the top of your dome had a wonderful answer. This one, I'm like, you only can pick 3, and you're like, son of a gun. Like I can feel you getting itchy. Yeah, no,
I was like sweating all of a sudden.
Listen, I think you picked the right 3. Leslie, you've been so gracious with your time. I have never said this before to a podcast guest. I am openly jealous of whoever is interviewing you next because I know how much fun they're going to have. This was delightful. Thank you so much for joining me today.
That was so kind. It was my pleasure.